Bhaktivinod Thakur. So we'll sing a special song. Oi Vaishnavata Deya Harachaya Sudaya Maya Tomara Charana Dori Chaya Begadomi Chaya Sadadori Chaya Guna Deodashe Chaya Begadomi Chaya Dosa Sodi Chaya Guna Deodashe Chaya Satsanga Dhyaya Mare Bochichi Sangira Rashi Chaya Satsanga Dhyaya Mare Bochichi Sangira Rashi Ekaki Amara Nai Ayabala Harinama Sankitane Ekaki Amara Nai Ayabala Harinama Sankitane Tumi Kripakori Shadavindudiya Deha Krishna Namadane Tumi Kripakori Shadavindudiya Deha Krishna Namadane Krishna si tomara Krishna diti paro Tomara sakatiya che Krishna si tomara Krishna diti paro Tomara sakati ache. Ami tu kangala Krishna Krishna bole Dahi tava pache pache. Ami tu kangala Krishna Krishna bole Dahi tava pache pache. Oi Vaishnava Thakura Doya Sangara Idashi Karunam Kori. Jaya Vaishnava Thakur, Jaya Vaishnava Thakur, Vaishnava Thakur, Jaya Vaishnava Thakur. Jaya Bhaktivinod, Jaya Bhaktivinod, Bhaktivinod, Jaya Bhaktivinod. Jaya Bhaktivinod, Jaya Bhaktivinod, Bhaktivinod, Jaya Bhaktivinod. O Vaishnava Thakur, O ocean of mercy, be merciful to me, your servant, and purify me by the shade of your lotus feet. Your feet I humbly hold. Yes, so today is the appearance day of one of the great Vaishnava Acharyas coming in our disciplic succession. His Holiness Satchidananda Bhaktivinod Thakur ki jai. Yes, so His Holiness Bhaktivinod Thakur, he was born in September in 1838 on a Sunday in West Bengal, in a district of Nadia. And his father gave him the name Kedranath. Kedranath is the name of Lord Shiva. So, we know Bhaktivinod Thakur, he made tremendous efforts to communicate the message of Lord Chaitanya through his books, his magazine publications, his personal door-to-door preaching, many public addresses and classes. So although Bhaktivinod Thakur was especially noted for discovering the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, he was also especially noted for actually rediscovering the actual movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which was practically lost due to external influences. Thus, he was honored by senior Vaishnavas as the seventh Goswami because of his incredible, amazing writings, his spiritual realizations, which are said to be on an equal level of that of the Goswamis, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, who were the principal disciples of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Unfortunately, mundane scholars and historians have made attempts to depict the Bhaktivinod Thakur's life story through their writings, but without understanding his inner life. Without understanding his inner life, they all, you could say, misinterpreted him. They misunderstood him. At his glance as a young man, Bhaktivinod Thakur appeared to be like a typical Bengali intellectual, a product of the British education system and Calcutta literary scene, a student of European philosophers, and of course later on he was seen as the high-posted government official, deputy magistrate, who was very popular and influential, a devoted family man with many children. So really it was only the Vaishnava devotees who could really understand Bhaktivinod Thakur's inner life as being a very dear and confidential, pure devotee of the Lord. Actually, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that only by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can one fully understand the nature of a pure devotee, or one situated in love of God. Actually, there was a story about an older acquaintance of Bhaktivinod Thakur who happened to run into Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj. And he exclaimed, "I used to know your father, Bhaktivinod Thakur." And Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said, "You didn't know my father." And the man said, "Yes, I knew your father. He was a deputy magistrate, he worked in the government, he was very influential." Bhaktisiddhanta said, "You didn't know my father." And then he started explaining to him about his actual position as being an eternal servant of the Lord. So, we should simply understand that Bhaktivinod Thakur was never a conditioned soul of this material world. He was a Nitya Siddha, an eternally liberated soul, a member of Krishna's inner circle of confidential devotees, who was sent by Krishna to revive the pure teachings of Lord Chaitanya and rescue everyone from their confusion. The inner life of such an eternally realized soul can never really be fully understood, actually, especially by us conditioned souls. Their inner life can only really be traced through their writings, in which their deep realizations and personal ecstasies are revealed. And as far as words can describe them, this was especially true of Bhaktivinod Thakur, who wrote so many amazing books where he revealed his personal experiences and transcendental realizations. Actually, Bhaktivinod Thakur's eternal spiritual identity was that of Kamala Manjari, who was one of the young maidservants of Radha and Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. In the spiritual world, we hear that Radha and Krishna are eternally served and worshipped by the 8 principal gopis, who are direct expansions of Srimati Radharani. And their assistants are the young manjaris, which are the 10 to 14-year-old girls who have beautiful forms like Srimati Radharani. And they engage in very specialized services to the divine couple. And they're very, very dear to Radha and Krishna. So it was this Kamala Manjari, this young maidservant of Radha and Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna's inner circle of confidential devotees, who was sent by Krishna to this material world to appear in the form of Bhaktivinod Thakur, to carry out a very, very important mission of reviving Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. So, as he grew up, we read that in his autobiography that he excelled throughout his school years. He was always winning medals of honor for his brilliant scholarship. And during his university years, he developed a great talent as a philosopher, and he was an undefeated debater. Actually, no one, in regards to logic, no one could possibly defeat him in a debate. He was very amazing. And it was during these university years that he especially became, you could say, fascinated by theism, religion, philosophy. He studied so many books as a young student in the university on the science of God and religion, the Bible, the Quran, the Vedas. He also studied the works of the Western scholars and philosophers. Actually became incredibly fully conversant in so many branches of knowledge. And it was during these university years that he went on a tour with his visiting all these places like Vrindavan, Mathura, Orissa. And it was during this time that he noticed that the younger generation of Indian students were turning their backs on their spiritual and religious traditions. Yes. So, actually, his first wife died when she was very young, leaving him with a young son. Therefore, he remarried and to a very sincere Vaishnavi who later became known as Srimati Bhagavati Devi. Then at the age of 26, he was appointed head clerk of the judge's court. Then later he was promoted to deputy registrar. Then at the age of 30 in 1868, he was appointed deputy magistrate. And also at that time, by Krishna's arrangement, he was moved to a new district where Vaishnava traditions were very, very strong. And actually it was in this place that he first received his first copies of Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he developed a very sincere desire to fully understand the very essence of pure Vaishnavism. So he prayed to the Lord in great humility, and the Lord reciprocated by fully enlightening him and empowering him to carry out this important mission of reviving Gaudiya Vaishnavism. As I mentioned before, he was not only noted for rediscovering the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, but he was noted as practically rediscovering Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, which had practically become obscured due to so many influences. So, as a direct result of Krishna's mercy and blessings. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's natural spiritual nature became, you could say, it just began to emerge, and within a short time, he was manifesting all the symptoms of an eternally liberated soul. You could see in this sense Krishna had hidden this great Mahabhagavat from the world. But now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's great mission for reviving Lord Chaitanya's movement was to begin. And what better person could have been chosen to preach to the intelligentsia of the day? Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a person. He was fully conversant with all the burning issues of the day. He had a very substantial intellectual background, respectable social origins. He was well studied in all major philosophies and religions and languages of the world. And above all, he was a pure devotee of the Lord. He was also a deputy magistrate, a recognized, respectable figure in society, whose opinion would be seriously heard and whose footsteps others would follow. So it was during this period that he would spend days and nights just reading and writing and studying. Then he began lecturing very strongly. And during his lectures, he was attacking the Christians, and he was attacking the modern intellectuals who were giving imperfect opinions about Vaishnavism and Vedic literature. But it is said that he was so expert. On one hand, he was expertly cutting the illusions and attachments and misconceptions of these conditioned souls. But at the same time, he was presenting the truth so palatably, so poetically, so wonderfully, that all the hearers were simply pleased. No one ever felt offended. You know, during this, you could say, historical period in India, you know, Bhaktivinoda Thakur had a lot to contend with in his struggle to re-establish the original pure teachings of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. You know, during this period in India, Sanskrit and India's classical literatures were taken out of the schools, all schools and universities established by the English. And all those trained in British schools and universities began supporting their English lecturers who were advocating that all these teachings of the Vedas, the Puranas, are simply fascinating collections of mythological tales that have very little to do with reality. So we could say the British were doing their best to form a class of persons, Indian in blood and colour, but English in taste, opinion, in morals, and also in intellect. They thought that through education we can change the whole Indian culture. However, if you read the histories, you'll see that their plan ultimately failed, because it was those Indian educated intellectuals trained by the English who later established an independent movement that drove the English out of India. Also, during this time, there was all these so-called, you could call them Indian reformers, and also deviant Sahaja groups concocting their own philosophies and religions and just misleading so many people. So despite all these obstacles, Bhaktivinod Thakur was enormously successful, and his work was carried out by his son, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Actually, it is said, and I've heard this, that the mere fact that Indians today still have some pride in their culture is due to the preaching efforts of Bhaktivinod Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who both worked tediously, very hard to re-establish the credibility and the respectability of traditional Vaishnava culture and philosophy. You know, in 1871, Bhaktivinod Thakur moved to Jagannath Puri, and there he became deeply immersed in studying and writing, and he became fully conversant in all Vaishnava philosophies. And it was here in Jagannath Puri that he would visit various holy places in Puri, and he'd spend time there just hearing and chanting. And, you know, his heart just became filled with deep spiritual sentiments as he was just totally absorbed in remembering the beautiful pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it was here in Jagannath Puri, actually, that he wrote more than 100 books. And he wrote these books he expertly wrote these books in a very comparative manner, so as to bring the teachings of Lord Chaitanya into relationship with almost every school of thought prevalent in the world. This means he made the sacred teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fully available to every modern reader. And to achieve this incredible task of writing so many books, I mean, most writers, if they write 4 or 5 books in their whole life, it's considered to be a great achievement. But Bhaktivinod Thakur wrote more than 100 books. So to achieve this, he followed a very strict disciplinary daily routine. You know, he was never idle. He would take rest around 8 p.m. at night. He'd only sleep for 2 hours. Then he'd wake up at 10 p.m. and he'd write books from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. in the morning. Then he'd rest for half an hour, chant japa from 4:30 to 7 a.m., answer letters from 7 to 7:30, study the scriptures from 7:30 to 8:30, receive visitors from 8:30 to 9:30, and if no visitors came, he would just go on reading to 9:30. Then he would take a rest briefly for 15 minutes. Then he'd take his bath and breakfast. And every day for breakfast, he just had 1 pint of milk, 2 chapatis, and some fruit. Then at 9:55, 5 to 10, he would don his uniform and leave for the court in his carriage. He worked with a pocket watch. He was always on schedule, utilizing every moment, inspired by an intense desire to render loving service to the Supreme Lord. Yes. And as a magistrate in the court, he wore his coat and pants, and on his neck he wore 6 strands of large tulsi beads. He shaved his head monthly. He kept this large sika. But he never cared what everyone thought of it, especially the English, they were like, what's dressing in his Vaishnava attire. And in court, it is said he was resolute in his decisions. He would decide a case practically immediately, and he would not tolerate any cheating or deception. And all the lawyers and Englishmen were just astounded by his work capacity. at 10 a.m. the court began, and he would hear between 30 and 50 cases in a day. What took other magistrates perhaps 1.5 hours to come to a verdict, he would decide in 5 minutes. At 1 p.m. he would go home, refresh himself, return to the court from 2 to 5. Then at 5 p.m. he would return home and begin his translating work from Sanskrit to Bengali. Then between 7 and 7:30, he would take his bath, his evening meal. Actually, for his evening meal, he always took the same thing: 1 pint of milk, 2 chapatis, and he'd take some rice. So although he held very high government position as a deputy magistrate, and he was very highly paid, he kept his personal needs to a bare minimum. Actually, he lived the simplest of lives. Besides writing books, he wrote many beautiful poems and many beautiful songs describing his states of ecstatic emotion and realizations. He was also writing various articles in popular magazines and journals, and he began his own very popular, widely read journal called Sajani Toshani, where he described, where he'd preaching to the modern intelligentsia of society. And at this time, the Commissioner of Jagannath Puri was so pleased at having a person of Bhaktivinod Thakur's caliber in his district that he asked him to watch over the affairs of the Jagannath Temple. And Bhaktivinod Thakur, he took up that responsibility, and he curbed many malpractices, and he made sure the worship was up to the highest standard. And there he would daily lecture in the temple on Srimad Bhagavatam. Actually, he inspired thousands of people to take up the process of devotional service. He even converted so many local staunch Mayavadis into becoming wonderful devotees of Lord Jagannath. And of course, it was here in Jagannath Puri that Bhaktivinod Thakur was praying for a ray of Vishnu, a special son who could assist him in carrying on his preaching work. Then, of course, in 1874, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati appeared in answer to his prayer. Up to this time, Bhaktivinod Thakur was actually searching for a guru. And then one night in a dream, Lord Chaitanya told him that his guru was coming soon to initiate him. And sure enough, just after that, he received a letter in the mail from a very wonderful pure Vaishnava who said in that letter, I will soon come and give you initiation according to Mahaprabhu's desire. And not long after, this Vipina Vihari Goswami, who was a descendant of one of Lord Chaitanya's intimate associates, came and initiated Bhaktivinod Thakur. And of course, soon after initiation, Bhaktivinod Thakur and his wife and 2 children, they went and stayed in Vrindavan for 3 months. And it was here that Bhaktivinod Thakur first met Srila Jagannath Das Babaji, who gave him many, many spiritual instructions. Actually, Bhaktivinod Thakur used to affectionately call Srila Jagannath Das Babaji the commander-in-chief of the Vaishnavas. And he later accepted him as his instructing spiritual master. Then at the age of 47 years, Bhaktivinod settled in Calcutta. He bought a home, he called it Bhakti Bhavan. By this time he had 10 children. He set up a printing press in his home, which he called the Chaitanya Press. And he began printing and publishing many books. He used to also receive many guests and dignitaries, and Also, during this time, it was noted that he was, frequently troubled by bad health. However, his determination to serve Krishna never diminished even slightly. It is said that he always accomplished the superhuman work of a spiritual genius while simultaneously perfectly performing his material duties to the government and to his family members. It was noted that, although Bhaktivinoda Thakur was honoured and he was highly respected throughout Bengal and Orissa, Bihar, but he did not possess the least shadow of vanity or pride. Although he held this very high government post, he was always very humble, compassionate. He was just truly an embodiment of all auspicious, wonderful, spiritual, godly qualities. And he befriended men of all classes and creeds. His sense of universal brotherhood made him a kind friend to one and all. Everyone just loved him dearly. And wherever he was many times he was transferred from one district to another. And whenever he was being transferred by the government to a new district, the people from the town from where he was being transferred from would come out and stage a huge protest that the government was transferring him. Everyone just loved him so dearly. And he was also very charitable. If anyone approached him for help, and many people did, they never went away disheartened. He was very charitable. And it was noted that he never bore grudges, even to those who were jealous of him or attempted to impede his spiritual mission. He was just always eager just to benefit one and all. Also, he never uttered any word that would injure another's feelings. He would never chastise anyone unless he was perfectly confident that he had the right to do that for that person's benefit. And of course, his administrative abilities was marked by both the English government officials and also even Indian kings. And as such, he was frequently called upon for advice in settling very difficult conflicts that were going on within the country. When he was offered honours and titles, he would humbly decline them on the grounds that would interfere with his holy mission. It was also noted there was never a man more strict. There was never a man found who was more strict in observing moral duties than Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He had this absolute distaste for anything immoral, which inspired many people to open their eyes and correct themselves. At the age of 54, he went on a preaching tour, performing Nam Sankirtan everywhere. He also organized door-to-door preaching. Actually in the course of time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur established 500 Namhat centers. Yes. He used to say, I am the street sweeper of the Nam Hut of Nimai. So overseeing these 500 Nam Hut centers kept him very busy, instructing, educating his many disciples and followers. Sometimes he would organize all the Nam Hut devotees to come together, just like sometimes in Mayapur we see that. All the Nam Hut devotees, they all come into the Mayapur. And So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was the one that started all this, and sometimes there would be like 2,000 to 4,000 devotees would come together in these huge festivals, these Namhat festivals, and they'd all be chanting and dancing wildly in ecstasy. Now Bhaktivinoda Thakur was invoking the original preaching mood of Gaunitai. And during these festivals, he would lecture very strongly, glorifying the glories of the holy name and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and explain the uselessness of impersonal philosophy. Then in 1896, which was the birth year of Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivinoda predicted. He predicted that soon a personality will appear who will preach the teachings of Lord Chaitanya and move unrestrictedly all over the world with his message. So he actually predicted that Prabhupada was coming. He knew. So when Bhaktivinoda Thakur turned 70 years old, he accepted Babaji initiation from Srila Gaurkishore Babaji. He put on the old loincloth and the begging apron of his beloved instructing spiritual master Srila Jagannath Das Babaji, and he established a place for his bhajan in Jagannath Puri, just a short distance from the samadhi of Haridas Thakur. But he stayed there, and he continued his chanting and writing, and he was still accepting disciples. But after 2 years, he began feeling this strong desire just to be fully absorbed in his own personal bhajan. So he went into complete seclusion, complete solitude, and he just became fully absorbed in uninterrupted meditation on his loving service to Radha and Krishna and Goloka Vrindavan. It said that he entered into a state of total samadhi, like spiritual trance. Then at noon in 1914, at the age of 76 years, he left this world and entered the spiritual realm to reinstate it in his eternal constitutional position as Kamala Manjari, the dear young maidservant of Shri Radha and Krishna, at the inner circle of Krishna's intimate servants in Goloka Vrindavan. His Divine Grace, Srila Satchidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki Jai. Appearance. There's so many different stories. We just give a glimpse into his life. Does anyone like to say anything or add anything? Story? Okay. Jai Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Go.